I can't believe it's been 2 years, which is rather amazing to think of what we've been through in that time. But also, I think there have been two huge changes for me in the sector in that time, which is when we first started doing this with Hull Museums, and I was playing the role of Holly at that particular time. I was doing the hosting. I must admit, I was not as well dressed as Holly. You look fabulous in your Orlando outfit there. I was doing this, and we were kind of looking at what was happening at the time. And I think we were kind of at the cusp of presenting at the time what would later become the Queer Heritage and Collections Networks. That's one of the key changes. And I know you met Dawn yesterday, Dawn Hosking, who's from National Trust and is one of the people who is on the committee that looks after the Queer Heritage Collections Network. So I'll mention that a little bit more towards the end while I do my news flash. Feel a bit like Kermit the Frog. And the other thing that I think is rather remarkable is, at the time, the idea of a bricks and mortar museum of queer history was still very much a dream. And here we are now. I am now very pleased, delighted to say that we are actually at a place now where we're going to open in a few months' time. So I want to show you a few things just to kind of get you up to speed with exactly what's happening with Queer Britain. So bear with as I do the whole getting the slides up and ready for you to see. So this is Queer Britain, and we are to be the first national LGBTQ plus museum. And I'd love to kind of bring you on this little journey now with me to kind of explain exactly how we want to work as an organization who are very lucky to have been given a place in the incubator space that is supported by the Art Fund. It's their building, and if those of you who have been to the House of Illustration, they were in the incubator space. They've now graduated into a much larger space, which will open soon. So it allows organizations like them and us to kind of basically spend a few years just working out exactly who we are, how we are, and what we can do to be the best museum that we can be, and then sort of graduate into another space. So I just wanted to start off with, this is the slide that we often use. It was from a few years ago, but this was sort of the postcard that we're handing out, sort of saying, please come see us, please come see us, or please support us. There was no come see us yet. It was just please support us so that you can one day come see us. But have a bit of a look at these 8 images, see if you can figure out exactly what they represent, what they're from. I'll come back to it at the end. But here are my contact details. So if there's anything throughout this little news flash that you think is of interest that we can look at together, and I will give hopefully a few seeds that we can sort of plant there in terms of thinking about what we can do together. These are my contact details if you want to get in touch. But as you can see, it's a great shot from a pop-up display that we once put up as well. So looking at some wonderful moments in Pride in London. And of course, it's 50 years of Pride in London this year as well. So it's a rather serendipitous year that we open on a very important anniversary year. So do get in touch. Now, the press for this has been fantastic. So newsflash, here are all, not all actually, there's lots more. There's just reams and reams of links that we've got. So I just grabbed a selection of some of the coverage for the opening of the museum. But also, just to show off, I'm in the Rolling Stone. I will never, ever, ever be that cool ever again. But right now, I can say, look, I'm in the Rolling Stone. Well, we are as a team. And it's just great to sort of see how people are really excited by the idea of an LGBTQ plus museum. I think that's the thing that has kept that dream alive across all the different there's only been one pandemic, but there's been lots of different lockdowns. All those different lockdowns, I think we had to shift a lot of our thinking online, as everybody has. But I think people, when you sort of say, well, our purpose is to have a place, a space where you can put on the walls the story of LGBTQ plus Britain. And that's really important for us, that it is about all of Britain. So yes, the incubator space is in London, but this is only the starting point. And we've already done lots of projects and work with different groups, artists, and they cover the full breadth of the country. So we're talking Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and all of England as well. So it has been wonderful to sort of see the press as well. That has been really, really positive. And I think that's something that's, for me, rather shifted as well, which is there was a bit of time during some of those lockdowns where whenever we did something, there was some negative feedback that came back. And I was expecting it when we made the announcement, but a lot of that negativity just did not come at us this time round, and I just it was just a really interesting reflection for me as the person who kind of looks after the social media, that on the biggest day, the biggest announcement that we've made, all we got was lots of love and lots of support, and there was a trickling up of donations as well, which is great. So I want to kind of just show you a very quick video, which was something that we did with Channel 4 and also Levi's UK. So we're talking about some rather important partnerships here that helped make that dream into a reality for us. And this was during one of those lockdowns. And one of our filmographers and photographers was able to visit a family. And I think it's really great for me to play this to you because, for a start, it's now nominated for an award. But also, it just gives you an idea of exactly what we're thinking about when we're sort of saying, well, how do we tell the story of LGBTQ plus Britain? What is it that we're going to include in this museum? And I think this family sort of encapsulates all the things that we want to tell.
I have found belonging in the LGBT community. I've provided a happy and loving household, and we are a family.
For me, that's more like a journey of self-acceptance, becoming who I fully am by loving myself.
My friends would have to tell me, like, I can't be friends with you anymore because I know what your mum is. That's like their exact words, I know what your mum is. But the world started to change and become more like accepting. It was easier because there were people that I was around that could relate to me and relate to my family.
Families like us are just like any other family.
We're regular people. We're all special, but there's nothing special about us. And for people to see that, I think that just kind of like normalizes just being who we are.
So for me, I think it comes down to that idea of the voice and how important it is for us to sort of capture those stories, those oral histories, when the people are still there. I think as someone who's kind of looked into pre-modern queer history as well, the difficulty sometimes is the fact that you don't have it recorded by that person that you want to explore or discuss or talk about their queer identity. And so here we are in a day and age where we can simply just open up a phone or open up a Zoom, and there you are. You can take the direct words of the people themselves. And there is a project that we're doing at the moment with the Kent State University, Molly Merriman, Dr. Molly Merriman, based there, and in the UK we've got Justin Bengry at Goldsmiths, who is doing research for us called Queer Pandemic, and it started as a way of recording via video, but simply as an extension of oral history recording, the story of people in lockdown. What is it like to be queer and in lockdown? What does that mean for you? So I think that is some really important parts of how we capture the wider story, and it's to really go down to the level of the individual and try and capture as many stories in that way that we can. And I think the fun thing, of course, is, as you know, as historians as well, is when you sort of say to somebody, that's a brilliant story, I need to record your story. Let's get your oral history down. They often go, no, I've got nothing interesting. But the simplest things that you can record are still vital. And as historians, you know that going back and knowing how much a piece of bread cost, for example, is sometimes a really important historical fact to record. And so I think the way that we're looking at it is that everybody's story is important, and we want to be a museum for all, and that's how we do it. We want to be able to say that everybody, your story is important. I'm just going to play you another very short clip as well of a campaign that we ran during the lockdowns. I believe this was in the first lockdown as well, so it was that moment when we're all, we were going round in circles in our homes, weren't we? Still not sure what was going to come out of it. And we ran a campaign with, again, Levi's and also with the post office, and they provided free postage. So, you can get these letters to us. And here is a tiny little clip of that campaign.
There's certain emotions you don't know that you even felt about something until you've actually now got on paper and you realise, and it actually makes it very real.
Your voice is the biggest instrument you will ever be given.
Write your open letter.
Be part of history.
So I suppose that's another key sort of phrase for us. Be part of history. let's make history is the big motto that we use. But I wanted to kind of give you that clip because, again, it's just a brilliant way in which it encapsulates exactly what my feeling is towards how we do this. My background about 25, even 20 years ago, many years ago, was working for the queer community of Melbourne. And at the time, because of where we were at the time, we were called the gay and lesbian community. And then it expanded a little bit. We became the G came first in Australia. So it was the GLBT. And then eventually, you know, Australia's now at the point where it says LGBTIQ+. So I wanted to kind of just encapsulate exactly how we do tell, you know, as many stories as possible. And for me, Asifa Lahore, who at the start of that post office campaign was sort of just known to us and was a friend, but has now become like an advocate for us, like an impassioned campaigner for us. Asifa is on our advisory boards, and Asifa sent us a letter, and it was a few pages long, and I only wanted to kind of drop you in the very end because I think it kind of encapsulates everything that Asifa wanted us to understand about what it was for Asifa to be queer during the pandemic, but also within the community in a wider sense anyway. So Asifa wrote, "I will end this by saying I am British, Pakistani, South Asian, Muslim, transgender, queer, and disabled. I want to live in a world where these labels mean nothing and everything. In solidarity, Asifa Lahore, Love Heart." And I think that that is sort of exactly what we want to say when we say this is for everybody, this is for all. And it's recognizing that we've got so many different parts of ourselves as well, so many different parts of identities, and we want to celebrate that as well. So I think Asifa's words are something that I always hold quite dear to my heart. And I always like to sort of share this because Asifa wanted us to share it, to sort of show exactly what it is that we're thinking about when we say we are going to tell the story of queer Britain. There's just some artworks here that I placed as well, just so you can kind of get a sense of what it is that we've got in the collection right now. It won't necessarily be what you see when you come see us when we first open. But at the moment, very top right, Sadie Lee, the brilliant historian and also painter. Would you believe that's a painting? Look very carefully. That's actually a painting, not a photograph. Sadie Lee won the Madam F Award, which is a prize that we award each year now to artists who and we celebrate queer creativity. And so that will be artwork that will it's supported by Madam F, which is you can get wines, Queer Britain wines now as part of the fundraising that we're looking at. So 3 bottles there. There's red, white, and rosé. But Sadie was the winner of that, so that's one of the artworks that will be part of our collection. We've got down the bottom Skittles, working with them and Gay Times. There was a campaign to colour the rainbow, as it were. And so this was a black and white photo that those of you who have seen my work at Historic England or my talking of the work of Historic England, which is one of the steering group committee members of the Queer Heritage Collections Network. Well, this was a black and white photo, which has now been brought to life in colour. And then one of the key things that we have in our collection is the outfit that was worn by Ollie Alexander in that moment when he made that impassioned speech for queer rights in Glastonbury. So I think an iconic moment, an iconic outfit from an iconic person. So this is just a picture of a pop-up from the past. You never know what we might look like now, but just to give you a flavour of what it could look like. It's really, for me, really looking at those intersectionalities of identity and really celebrating. In this case, it was an exhibition called Chosen Family. I think that word family has come up quite a bit, and I think that this is exactly what it is. We have a family that, like most families, can be a little bit tricky sometimes. There are certainly members that are part of the wider LGBTQ plus umbrella that, you know, there are things that are going to be complex and are going to be need to be very carefully thought through. But I think at the core of it, at the very heart of it, it's always going to be, for me, about celebrating the different communities, and the different individuals in the communities, and the different stories that our individuals within the communities have. So I go back to that time when I was working in the queer sector, queer community sector, rather than my heritage background, which has only come about in the last 10 years. I go back to the roots of that, which is very much about bringing in as many groups as possible to the space. We will have an art space, a studio, it's being called, but for me, it's also that space where people can come in with a cup of tea, they can sit around, they can have a chat, they can work out exactly what it is that they want to have represented and reflected of themselves in the galleries upstairs. So for me, that's the really exciting thing that I get to do. So just to quickly just tie it all together with the Queer Heritage Collections Network, because I did say there were two things that I thought that was pivotal. The Queer Heritage Collections Network is that other thing for me, which, as you can see, includes English Heritage, Historic England, Historic Royal Palaces, National Trust, and the Research Centre for Museums and Galleries. They are the core founding organisations, the five, and they're the ones that I report to, and they're the ones that were directly funded by the Art Fund initially. So thank you again to the Art Fund, and now we are funded by the National Heritage Lottery Fund, which is where I have some interesting information for you as well, which I hope Dawn actually might have brought up yesterday already. But there are about 80, that's already an outdated list, but there are about 80 organisations already involved. And if I look to the H, you can see that, yes, Hull Museums is definitely there. Have a look at your section. It is alphabetical. See who is and isn't there. Do you want to join this? It's free, which is a great thing to start off with. It's very much about supporting you in your work to do queer history, heritage work, and it's very much about trying to knit you together with the right organizations that can support you in getting over the hurdle that you've got right in front of you. Lots of organizations are very experienced. Of course, we've got, as you can see in this list, nationals, we've got local authority collections, we've got independent collections. Each have their own different hurdles they need to overcome. It might be trustees, it might be audience engagement, it might be looking at how you catalogue your collections. We have a fairly good overview of who's done what, and it's we want to make mentoring a really key part of the network, which is we will find the right person for you who has done something and they've overcome that, so they can help you overcome it with yourself as well. But the other things we do is also make sure that we share the research. We don't want to have these, multiple research projects happen in silos. So Chris Reed, who's our primary researcher based out of Northern Ireland, he's brilliant at having an overview of all the research projects, AHRC funded, or the doctorates, all that sort of stuff. He's got a really good handle on the literature, and he wants to make sure that that gets shared across organizations as well. If you want to sign up to our newsletter, please grab a shot of this QR code. I think that's how it works. But also, we've just opened a Twitter just for this symposium. We thought it would be great to have you joining together on the Queer Heritage Collections Network Twitter. There's our hashtag. It's very long. I think we should get an award for having the longest hashtag. But that QR code that you've got there is going to be really important, because one of the things that we're going to announce very soon is a second tranche of funding that we'll be offering out to the sector itself. So via the funding that we've got from National Heritage Lottery Fund, we are able to support 5 organisations, and it's a small pot. It's only £1,000, which is nice, but I think what it comes with is also time with our researchers. So you get time with Dawn Hoskin, you get time with Chris Reed. They can support you in training, they can support you in looking at your program. Dawn's very experienced, for example. I think you get a sense of that from yesterday. So imagine if Dawn can cast her eyes over your project, for example, and Chris also supporting you. And we've got a few other researchers that work rather closely with us as well, who are from those organisations. So it comes with a pot of a pot of £1,000, but it also comes with time from our researcher, which actually accumulates quite a bit of time there that we can work together. And we've always thought of it as sort of being about processes and the collection, and we've also thought of it as being about engagement and audiences. So those are the kind of 2 things that we can really support with. But of course, there's going to be other things that we can really, really help you out with as well. So do join up to the newsletter, because it means that as soon as that next tranche of funding is announced, you will know that you can be up for it. The current fundees, we're just mapping out exactly what's happening with Northern Ireland, but you'll meet Sophie from Queer Kerno shortly, and we were able to support that particular project. And in that case, it was also match funded as well from some local funding as well. So it really helped, I think, Sophie with the project, and it's award winning already. So I'm really looking forward to sort of seeing what happens with Sophie's session. So that's the news flash from me. Again, a nice little shot. If you want to email me directly, feel free to do so. So grab a screenshot if you need to. And actually, before I finish and come back to you, Holly, maybe I should give you a sneak peek of exactly what it's like to be inside this building. So when we were going to announce the story that we were taking over the space, the incubation space from the Art Fund, I immediately switched on my community mind in my head, like that. I wanted to not just have a picture of the space and go, we're moving into this. I wanted to sort of give you a sense of exactly some of the people that will be part of it as well. So we just put out a message to some of our trustees and volunteers, and only those who could come on that particular lunchtime, because it was a very quick message that I got around. But I just wanted to show you sort of a little video of people having fun in the space that will soon become a pivotal space where we can say to everybody, as long as you can get to King's Cross, which is relatively easy to get to, you can come to this space now where we will be able to celebrate queer histories. We will be able to really tell the story of queer Britain. There you go, Holly.
That was amazing. I loved that video. Very good, quick thinking. Yeah, what a wonderful video, and yes, a way to capture that moment, which must have been so exciting for all of you. Because as you say, 2 years ago, the idea of a bricks and mortar museum was, to quote you, still a dream. So that's a wonderful achievement for the Queer Britain team. Thank you for such a good talk on that. Sort of, we got the news out, we sort of, I've learned a lot more about the project and actually about its roots and what it's been doing over the past few years. So that's been really helpful. I don't know, this is a complete aside, but I don't know if anyone else has just encountered a hailstorm, because I've got my laptop positioned between two windows. So as you were sort of presenting so calmly, there was just this sort of frenzy of hailstones. Yeah, it was very cinematic, let's just say. So the weather was giving a bit of drama where I am. I think it's calmed down for me now. So
that sounds like it's more of a right-wing news flash if you've got queers and creating all sorts of weather drama.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I don't know. The weather never speaks, does it? But anyway, could you talk more about, because I think what I really enjoyed yesterday with Lauren's talk was the fact that at Hull museums, they do so much. And I had a sort of list, and it was sort of, they've got a blog, a playlist, a reading list, a podcast, they do social media and all of this kind of digital stuff. And I think I'm reflecting on the way that social media has been so important for organizations to kind of get kick-started. But do you think that a bricks and mortar museum is still the dream or the end goal, or should it be, or is it just a kind of, or is it now one facet of many things that we can be doing in order to develop queer museum practices? I'd be interested to know your thoughts, because I mean, bricks and mortar, that does seem like a solid thing, and maybe it is about creating a kind of a sense of space where there's stability. But I'd be interested to know your insight on how these how all of these segments of kind of interpretation and research can all kind of coexist.
I think was the word you just used there, like a facet, if you think of a diamond, I think we're just like a teeny tiny cut in the diamond, like just one side of the diamond. I think what Hull museums do is brilliant. I just want to read out very quickly a message that came in to me from Sandra when we were sort of saying, inviting people to come to this particular symposium, and Sandra wrote, "This looks really good. Hull Museums are doing some fab queer heritage stuff that I wish I was there when I was growing up in the area." And I think that's the thing that for me is that, you know, where we're located at the moment, we're located there, and it's bricks and mortar, which is great. And as you say, the digital is a really key component of that as well. But I think there's something in making sure that everyone, where they live and where they grow up and where they are finding who they are, finding out who they are, and all that there is a supportive network there for them as well. And I think for me, it goes back to that old community idea as well, because, I grew up in Australia, where it's a massive country. It's so vast, it's huge. And so everything was very much relying on that idea of, how do we kind of make sure that we can map between, different towns, for example, and rather silly thinking of the Priscilla bus now, but maybe there should be a Priscilla bus that goes all across the different townships. And I know that Sophie, actually, it's rather poignant point, because Sophie will probably talk about something like that in Cornwall. But I think it's really important that we do make sure that I think Queer Britain's just, it's great because we have a hub now of expertise. So you've got people like Dawn, you've got working on that curatorial advisory team, and also to look at exactly what is going to be on display, how it gets displayed. But also, I think we can be that place where people can turn to and go, oh, I'm working on this thing. How do I make it happen? So it's sort of hub and spoke idea. So I think in both instances, it's great that Queer Britain is there. It's great that Queer Britain is already sort of host to the Queer Heritage Collections Network as well, because we've held already a meeting digitally though, but from within the museum itself. So I think we need to use all the things that are available to us to make sure that we are fully represented as much as possible across all the different parts of the country. And Britain is teeny tiny when you compare it to Australia. It's the size of my state, but there's still a lot to do in terms of reaching out to rural areas and reaching out to areas where it is things like funding might be more difficult, or just travel and access might be a little bit more difficult. So I think it's really important to keep that in mind as well.
I really like the idea of it being a resource hub as well as a museum, because I think we touched upon this yesterday, but when we think about a museum, I think we do still think of that very Victorian idea of the kind of the building where we've gone to other parts of the world and we've brought objects back that we think you should see, and this is what we think about them. But increasingly how, with all of these resources that we now have in the present day, be it kind of digital and ways of kind of connecting in ways that we haven't before, it's actually, there's a dialogue between the people who come to the museum and the museum much more, so it's less dogmatic in a way. And I really like the idea that it's going to be, I don't want to say so much more than a museum, because maybe actually we need to expand the definition of museum, but that's a really nice idea, and I think it's expanding what museums can do for communities, and I'm really excited. And also about the idea of it being an incubator space funded by Art Fund. That's really exciting as well, because then that implies, it's in the beginning stages, and that got me thinking, well, where will it go? And can you give any form of sort of long-term, I don't know, 5-year, 10-year, or is that kind of off limits, or is that sort
of... we're just thinking about opening for now.
I know. That's why I'm saying that's sort of...
No, it's okay. So can I just very quickly say, some of the things that Hull Museums did in the last year, and to get to that exhibition, Pride in Our City, was phenomenal, because that was mapped out over lockdown number 5 million or whatever it was, and the way that I saw that come together, I thought was brilliant, because it is such an outstanding example of how you can work with the community. And as you say, it is sort of rethinking exactly what a museum does. And so I know what Lauren did was, you had the artists in residence, and I think you met them yesterday, but you had the artists in residence who basically worked with, youth groups. You worked with the local rugby team, worked with all these different people. And the way it came together in the exhibition itself spoke to that, that I loved the way it was kind of had that sort of torn paper zine feel to it, because museums are such a great way of making sure that you represent multiple voices and multiple visions and all that sort of stuff as well. But that idea of remixing something as well, so you can like put something beside it and play with it in that particular way. And so I find all that incredibly inspiring. And now you've said that they've also got a book club, and they've also got these other things that they're doing and on social media. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I need to up my game.
Whole museums are doing everything.
But I think so. I'm at the museum for like 2 days a month, so there's a lot still to kind of work out in terms of how we make it all possible. But for me, it really is, absolutely what you just said there, which is about making sure that it is about working very closely with the community. And I think that's always been at the core of all the projects that I've done, because it's just the way that I worked in the past. And so I think there's another thing that I like to bring to it, which is I am a big fan of Stella Duffy, the author. I had the great privilege and honor of working with Stella for a teeny tiny amount of time when she was at Fun Palaces. And if anyone's ever done a fun pass for a museum, it's chaotic, it's lovely, it's fun, it's great. And Stella taught me this notion of the radical unknowing, which is you just open the room up and you say, the people will come and they'll tell you what they want. They'll tell you what they're interested in. They'll tell you exactly what they want to do. But what you need to do is you need to be able to stand back and go, okay, talk to me, tell me that, and then be able to respond to that. And it takes it. I think I saw a nod there from Jenny. It takes a bit of courage and bravery to be able to do that, to be able to sort of say, all right, come and tell me. So, but I think that is exactly what we want to do when we revision the idea of what a museum does. And I think that if I can impress on everybody, Stella Duffy's wonderful 2 words was just radical unknowing, and being able to think of just be prepared to listen to the communities that come to you, I think is I think that's a really key part of it. So wherever we end up, for me, it's radical unknowing. I don't know where we'll end up.
I think that's a very good way to look at it, actually, because it means that you are more likely to be responding to the community as those needs change or develop. So I think that's actually quite a nice approach, I think. And we spoke about that, the radical unknowing, a few weeks ago, and I've been thinking about it because you can't predict sort of the course of events over the next 5-10 years. Pandemic, I don't think that was on anyone's radar. That's a nice idea that we can sort of trust that whatever will happen, Queer Britain will respond to that. And that's exciting, actually, because it shows that you have got an organisation that is proactive, that listens, that there's a kind of give and take, and there's a better sense of community, I think, than kind of probably what we've seen, how we've seen kind of museums run in the past. So that's just all around really exciting. I can't wait for the opening. I can't wait to see where you go next. Do you have any closing thoughts?
I suppose my closing invitation to everybody is, if you can get to London now, come and see me. I would love to bring you into the space before we open. I'm already doing that with some community groups, and it's great because when they're there, it's to sit with them while we're in the mode of it being a big white cube. It requires your imagination to kind of think about exactly what it is that will go in there. And I suppose the other annoying question that I always ask whenever we have functions is, we actually had one the other day, which is rather amazing. There was somebody who there were even hors d'oeuvres served, and almost like bit off this person's hand. I was like, oh my goodness, I haven't been at a hors d'oeuvres for so long. Give me. But anyway, so we had this function where we're fundraising at the moment via Depop, which for those of you who don't know, like me, because I'm not cool, it's sort of like this the eBay for really good fashion designer clothing. So Soho House ran this event for us, and we're currently selling these wonderful garments and with wonderful queer models modeling them all, and all the proceeds go to our collection. But one of the things that I was doing is I was going around meeting different groups, was just going, well, what would you put into the collection? What was that thing that you would like to have in there that represents you? I got to do this myself personally. So I know you're meeting Rowan shortly. I went, you know what, I'm going to bring in artwork that I like and I want to see, so it's in the office. It's not out in the big gallery, but, I can say some of the first artists I've been able to bring in is like Ashton Atts, Rowan, who you're going to meet. And also I brought in a Vagina Museum poster as well, because, they're another great emerging museum that I look at and I just think, wow, the things that they do are just brilliant. So for me, it's, it's what would you see in the museum? So I suppose I'm going to spin it on you, Holly, to give you a moment now to perhaps suggest exactly. Oh, Maddie, it's Depop, and then you just go /Soho House. There's some really good clothes in there, but it is designer clothes. So, but yeah, I'd see how you go. But Holly, yeah, what would you put into the museum?
What are we talking? Objects, paintings, clothing? Is it kind of? Is that the point? It can be anything.
Yeah, fair game, but it should represent you, whatever you want. I mean, I could put you in the museum already.
Well, here's the thing. Orlando has many beautiful costumes that I've treasured and tried to look after as best as a drag king can, because, you will get foundation on them. You will get kind of tears where you have struck your hand a bit too dramatically into the air. But I think maybe I would put some of Orlando's clothes there. But that's the thing. Would there be a kind of, can I take the object away when I have to use it? Or actually, maybe that's actually a really interesting development, because you have a museum object that's in use. It's not kind of become redundant and given a little kind of plaque. It's kind of, it might not be there on display because it's being used. I don't know.
I can't see Dawn right now, and I've just noticed that Dawn's actually in the audience. So I imagine Dawn's got her head in her hands going, don't invite things into the museum just yet. Like, there is a curatorial team that's looking after all the things that are being collected. But I think as a hypothetical question, yeah, I do love this idea of exactly what you'd have to represent. Holly, have you shared your photos that Henry T took of you? Because, I've got one, so I'm going to put that up on the wall as well. So you're in the museum already.
Oh, no, they are for everyone, those photos.
I am going to drop into the chat a link to some of the photographs of you as Orlando, just because it's fabulous. And again, just as a sense of, this is the sort of stuff that I do want to see in our museum. And, it'll bring me inordinate amounts of joy.
Orlando would be honoured, absolutely honoured, although he would expect nothing less as well. So.